Guns are getting stupid expensive lately, and every shop acts like if you're not dropping $700, you're walking out with a joke. But here's the truth. A lot of the so-called budget pistols are jokes. I've shot some that rattled, some that jammed, and one that literally spit its recoil spring across the bench. So yeah, I've been burned. But this year felt different. A few cheap pistols finally showed up that didn't act cheap. They ran clean, stayed accurate, and didn't fold under pressure. And honestly, it annoyed me, because some of these things shot better than guns that cost way more, and nobody wants to admit that. This list isn't sponsored. Nobody's paying for a pat on my back, and I'm not sugarcoating anything. These pistols earn their spot because they've survived real rounds with real shooters behind them. Alrighty then, enough talk, let's get into it. The budget pistols that actually pull their weight in 2025. There's always that one pistol in the budget aisle that feels like a coin toss, and for me, the GX4 is exactly that gun. Every time I see one sitting in a shop case, it gives off that "you sure about this" energy. Budget buyers know the deal. Sometimes you grab a winner, sometimes you walk out holding a project. The GX4 lives right in the middle of that gamble, and the price doesn't hide it. Most of the ones I've seen hang around the low to mid 300s, which is where you expect a little risk baked into the purchase. You pick it up, rack a few times, and you're already playing that quiet game of reading its attitude. When the gun behaves, it actually runs smooth, carries light, and doesn't fight you. It does the job without pretending to be more than it is. But with budget guns, consistency is the tax you pay. I've watched some GX4s run clean for thousands of rounds, and others get picky the moment the cheap ammo shows up. It's the nature of the tier, not a deal breaker, just a reality check. For a budget gamble, the GX4 lands right where it should, on the list, but nowhere higher. I rediscovered my Ruger Security 9 the way you find an old socket wrench in the garage. Not impressive, not exciting, but you keep it because it always does what it's supposed to. There's nothing in this gun that tries to win you over. No sleek lines, no trendy cuts, nothing that makes you stop and admire it. And honestly, that's what makes it work. The Security 9 has the stubborn blue-collar feel to it. You rack it, load it, and it behaves like a tool that's been on the job longer than you have. No drama, no attitude. Last time I saw one on a shelf, it was somewhere in the low 300 lane, and that felt about right. The price of a decent work boot, not a lifestyle purchase. Its flaws aren't hidden though. The trigger feels like it's been on shift all week, the sights look tired, and the frame has that plastic knock that doesn't inspire admiration. But the gun keeps showing up. That's what it does. It works even when you forget it's there. It's not a pistol you're proud of. It's a pistol you rely on, and that's a different kind of value. And the next gun? That one doesn't rely on anything, it just demands attention. There's a strange thing the Elite SC does the first time you run it. It acts like it already knows what kind of shooter you already are, and not in a friendly way either. The gun has this restless energy like it wants to move faster than you planned. The first time I ran one, I remember tightening up without thinking, leaning forward just to keep pace. You squeeze off a few rounds and suddenly find yourself matching its rhythm. And for something that technically lives in the budget lane, it sure doesn't act like it knows that. These usually sit in the mid 300s, but the SC carries itself like it's annoyed to be wearing a budget tag. The slide moves with a kind of purpose, the frame feels eager, and nothing about it asks to be pretty. That attitude comes with friction. I'll tell you straight, if you get lazy with your grip or drift off your rhythm, the Elite SC lets you know. It wants pressure, it wants commitment. Shooters who half-ass the basics won't get along with it. If a pistol with this much personality sits outside the top 10, then the tone of this list is about to change fast. Most shooters skip past the P10C until they check the price tag, and then everything flips. It's one of those pistols that doesn't signal budget the way the rest of the shelf does. When I look at mine, nothing about it suggests it was designed for the bargain lane. It just happens to live there because CZ priced it that way. Budget guns usually play it safe with softened edges or modest styling. The P10C doesn't bother. It carries a steadiness you usually see one bracket higher, the kind that makes you rethink what belongs in this category, and that confidence can mess with you a little. You end up judging it the way you judge your mid-tier guns, expecting refinements that were never built into this price. What I appreciate is how little it asks for attention. No drama, no posing, just a pistol that looks more finished than the number underneath it. I remember thinking it felt misfiled rather than discounted, and if a gun like this sits at number 10, that says a lot about what budget really means in 2025. I was in a little gun shop just outside Flagstaff last winter, and a guy at the counter was holding a dagger like he wasn't sure he should trust the price tag. The clerk just shrugged and said, "Man, folks don't buy these because they're fancy. They buy them because they're tired of paying Glock rent." And that's really the whole story of the Dagger Compact. It didn't climb its way into popularity, shooters pulled it there. People wanted something familiar, something customizable, something they wouldn't feel guilty about when beating it up. The Dagger answered by simply existing at a price everyone could live with. It's not trying to act premium. The appeal is freedom. The freedom to experiment, to mod it, to run it hard, to lean on it without sweating over every scratch. And somewhere in that freedom, each dagger ends up a little different, which is part of the charm, and occasionally part of the headache if you expect Glock uniformity at half the cost. But if this is a pistol that represents the budget rebellion, the next one shows what happens when that rebellion starts getting serious. And then there's the TPR9, the one pistol in this budget lineup that feels like it wasn't built for the same crowd as the others. It's heavier, it's larger, and that DASA system isn't doing any favors for shooters who want something simple. But none of that feels like a flaw when you realize what kind of gun this actually is. The TPR9 has the posture of an old-school duty pistol, the sort of thing a serious shooter keeps because it does its job without needing it to be liked. I remember once seeing a guy at an outdoor range in Nevada uncase his, and the range officer just nodded and said, "That's a real gun." No excitement, no hype, just quiet respect. That reaction fits the TPR9 better than any review ever could. What makes it stand out in the budget lane isn't performance flash or even marketing polish, it's the maturity. You're paying entry-level money for something that behaves like it came from a completely different era of handgun design. And if a pistol this grown up sits at number 8, the next one doesn't get louder, it gets sharper. A 1911 doesn't need convincing. It's a design that's been around long enough to speak for itself, and the Tisas version leans into that without apology. No flash, no modern angles, no attempt to compete with anything outside its own lineage. It's a budget pistol that carries itself like history you can actually afford. What stands out isn't performance or refinement, it's the honesty. The gun feels exactly like what it is, a straightforward steel-framed service pistol built the old way. And sure, that comes with weight, a low-capacity profile, and a manual of arms younger shooters might not care for, but none of those feel like its flaws if you understand the platform. They're simply the realities of a design that never asked to be updated. I remember hearing the soft metallic thunk of its slide next to me at an outdoor range, a sound that doesn't show up in polymer guns, a small thing, but it surely tells you exactly what you're holding. This isn't nostalgia trying to impress you, it's nostalgia that feels earned. And if number 7 looks backward this confidently, the next pick shows what budget guns can do when they stop leaning on the past entirely. Glocks don't usually show up on budget lists, and the 19X definitely wasn't built with bargain hunters in mind either. But the used market has a way of rearranging things, and this is the one Glock that keeps slipping into reach more often than you'd expect. Not cheap, just possible. And in the budget world, that matters. The appeal isn't complicated. It's a Glock that feels like it was meant to be used hard. Every time I run into a 19X that's been carried for years, it looks the same. Worn edges, finish rubbed smooth, still cycling like it hasn't noticed. A guy at an outdoor range once handed me his and said, "This thing's been everywhere," like he was talking about a dog that's always found its way back home. Performance-wise, it's the same Glock rhythm. Predictable break, steady recoil, nothing flashy, nothing fragile. You're paying for reliability that already proved itself under someone else's ownership. The only catch is the reputation. Some folks expect a duty gun right out of the box and forget they bought a used pistol with its own history. If the 19X shows what brand durability does to price, number 5 shows what happens when budget guns start offering something brand new. I was at a packed indoor range a few months back and something kept catching my eye. Every few lanes, somebody was running a Shield. No fanfare, no showing off. Just a quiet pattern that kept repeating. One guy unholstered his from a basic Kydex rig, another had one tucked inside a beat-up range bag, and a third was loading a magazine that looked like it had lived in a glove box for years. It wasn't the newest gun in the room, but it was absolutely the most common. That's the thing about the original Shield. It didn't become the budget carry king through hype. It did it by being the pistol everyone could actually afford to trust. Before micro compacts and fancy optics-ready frames took over, the Shield made everyday carry reachable for normal shooters. Time has moved on though. Capacity isn't modern, the ergonomics feel dated next to the newer designs, and the slimness came with trade-offs you only notice once you've handled the latest wave of budget compacts. Still, when someone hands a friend their Shield and says, "Try this one, it just works," you understand why it owned the spot for years. Carry guns changed a lot after this one had its moment, and the next one comes from that newer way of thinking. The RXM9 feels like Ruger finally decided budget pistols didn't have to act like budget pistols. There's a rough draft confidence to it, like someone in the design room kept pushing for modern features even while they knew the accountants were watching. It shows up with angles and cuts you usually don't see in this price lane, almost like Ruger was testing how far affordable can stretch before something snaps. I noticed it most while running a simple rhythm drill. The muzzle didn't wander the way most pistols in this bracket do. It settled quickly, almost eager, like the frame geometry was trying to prove a point. That's the RXM9 in a sentence. Little flashes of, "Oh, okay, that's interesting," appearing where you're not expecting them, but you can still feel the leash. Some of the refinement just isn't there. A few edges feel more enthusiastic than finished, and the trigger hints at improvement without fully delivering it. You're reminded you're still in the budget aisle, just at the edge of it. And the next pick doesn't build on this, it takes the budget idea in a totally different direction. Ammo costs shut down more new shooters than recoil ever will, and that's exactly where the TX-22 earns its place on this list. Most pistols get called budget because of what they cost to buy. This one is budget because of what it costs to use. Every magazine you run through it feels like money you didn't have to spend somewhere else, and that adds up faster than anyone wants to admit. It's built for practice, not prestige. Lightweight, easy to point, and honest about being a rimfire, and that does bring the usual rimfire quirks. Some ammo it loves, some it shrugs at, but once you understand that rhythm, the gun becomes a tool you can rely on for reps. I noticed it during a simple transition drill. The muzzle barely moved, reset felt natural, and the gun stayed out of the way so I could actually focus on my hands instead of managing the pistol. That's the whole point of the TX-22. It lets people train more, shoot more, and learn faster without feeling punished for it. Training pistols teach you what to do, The next gun deals with what you might have to do. Duty guns aren't about charm or character. They're built to show up when they're needed and keep showing up long after the owner is tired. And that's why the SAR9 Compact X feels different from most pistols in its price lane. It carries a seriousness you don't usually see until you're a tier higher. The full-size SAR9 line has real service DNA behind it, picked up by Turkish Special Forces and reportedly adopted by a US department at one point, and the Compact X feels like that backbone trimmed down, tightened up, and made reachable for normal shooters. There's a kind of quiet authority to the way it runs. You notice it when someone racks it at the range. There's weight in the slide, a deeper sound when it cycles, a sense that the gun knows its job. It shoots straight, tracks predictably, and doesn't get flinchy when you push the pace. But that duty feel comes with trade-offs. The grip is fuller, the frame has presence, and long sessions remind you this was designed with work in mind, not comfort. If this is the budget gun built for responsibility, the last one is built for the moments that don't give you a warning at all. Most people don't carry a gun because they enjoy thinking about danger. They carry one because life has places where you don't get to schedule a problem, and the gun that actually ends up on them isn't the one with the best specs or even the loudest fan base. It's the one that fits into a day that's already full. And this is why the Bodyguard 380 becomes the one people actually trust to carry. It's the smallest, lightest, easiest to live with pistol on this entire list. Not the most confidence-inspiring at the range, but easily the most accessible. Minimum price, maximum convenience. It's the kind of gun people buy when they're being honest with themselves about what they actually carry and not what they wish they would. I've seen it in real life more than most guns here. Someone adjusting a jacket, keys hitting the floor, a tiny pocket holster peeking out for half a second. It's the carry gun that just quietly exists in everyday life. The limitations are real. Small controls, snappy recoil, and accuracy that asks for patience. But this pistol's job isn't to impress you. Its job is to be there when nothing else will. The Kel-Tec PF9 is one of those pistols that somehow survived long enough to become a budget classic. It's not pretty, not refined, and definitely not going to impress anyone at the range, but the whole point of this gun was never comfort to begin with. It was cost and concealment and nothing else. KelTec built it like a tool you buy when you want the thinnest, lightest thing you can legally carry without taking out a loan. The PF9 shoots exactly how it looks: sharp, loud for its size, and honest about being a handful. The recoil snaps, the trigger feels like it's pulling cable, and the ergos were clearly designed when slim mattered more than shootable. But there's something admirable about a gun that doesn't pretend. It was one of the first true ultra-slim 9mm carry guns long before the big brands caught up. And despite its age, people still pick them because a gun that's this easy to hide solves problems nothing else in its price lane ever does. Not perfect, just perfectly simple. Most people who switch to a P365 don't go back. That alone earns the Nitron a spot in these bonus picks, price drop or not. Even the early versions still do something most tiny pistols struggle with. They shoot like they're not tiny. The original design landed so cleanly that every other brand had to rethink what a small carry gun was supposed to be. The Nitron isn't a budget gun by nature, but every now and then the used shells make room for one. When that happens, you're getting a pistol with real history behind it. A grip that settles into your hand quicker than you expect, recoil that stays control if you do your part, and accuracy that rewards discipline instead of guessing. It's still micro-compact at heart, and it reminds you of that in the way small guns always do, but nothing feels out of place. The gun behaves exactly like something built for people who carry every day and not just shoot on weekends. When one of these drops into budget territory, it's worth paying attention to. You know something? Budget pistols are a weird game. Some of them look solid until you actually pull the trigger, And some of them, the cheap no-name ones you barely glanced at, end up running circles around guns twice their price. I've learned that the hard way. I've bought guns that felt good in the shop only to choke the first time I really needed them. And I've had $20 mags that outlive $400 pistols. Point is, price don't mean a damn thing if the gun won't fire. So whatever you carry, make sure you picked it up because it works and not because a salesman smiled at you. If a budget gun earned your trust or burned you bad, drop it all in the comments. I read all of it, even the stuff that stings. This is your boy Steve, so stay sharp, don't carry trash, and I'll see you on the next one.